For elected official compensation in the city of Columbus. We've been meeting now for about 2 months. This hearing is to solicit comment and answer any questions that may be had by the public. We have here in council chambers, we have no citizens for the public hearing. However, this is being broadcast and there may well be members of the public watching. Over the course of the last 2 months, we've had a number of presentations, and I'll just go through those. Bill Lafayette of Regionomics spoke with us about the CPI and COLAs. Greg Beaverson, who will make a presentation this evening, who is the compensation manager of the Human Resources Department, has been feeding us with numerous accounts of comparable positions throughout the country, as well as Nikki Brandon, the Director of Human Resources. Mike Brown, the Chief of Staff of City Council, made a presentation telling us about the charter-approved move from 7 to 9 members of council in 2023. Matt Erickson, the Director of the Legislative Research Office of City Council, briefed us on the city's budget. Auditor Kilgore and Deputy Darlene Wilds gave us an overview of revenue projections for the city. Richard Blunt from the Mayor's Office supported the meeting, and Robert Tobias from the City Attorney's Office. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to our Chief Staff Person, Nia Walters, who's going to give us a presentation on the commission process.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners, members of the public. My name is Nia Walters, and I will be giving a brief presentation on the Citizens Commission on Elected Officials Compensation. In November of 2014, voters voted overwhelmingly in support of a series of ballot issues, one of which included changes which mandated that there was a Citizens Commission on Elected Official Compensation established to review and recommend the salary for elective offices of the city, with the underlying goal of increasing citizen engagement and adding an additional layer of accountability to the process for the setting of future pay rates for elected officials in the city of Columbus. The 5-person commission has been charged with reviewing compensation for the mayor, city council, including council president, city attorney, and city auditor, and will make salary recommendations, including an annual cost of living adjustment, which shall not exceed the average increase in the consumer price index over the last 4 years. At this time, I'm going to go over the charter provisions, which really lay out the charge of the commission. The salary of all elected officers provided in this charter must be established by ordinance upon the recommendation of this commission. The commission shall consist of 5 members, 2 who are selected by council and 2 who were selected by the mayor's office, and 1 which is the chair, which shall be appointed jointly between the council and the mayor. These people that are appointed shall be qualified electors of the city and shall not hold any other office or employment in city government and shall serve without compensation. The commission is required to conduct a review of salaries for like positions in the public sector. This review shall be made for the purposes of recommending appropriate salaries to the duties and responsibilities of each elective officer of the city. Within 3 months of appointment, the commission shall submit a report of recommendations to the city clerk for the salary of each elective officer, including an annual cost of living adjustment, which again shall not exceed the average increase in the consumer price index or the successor thereto during the preceding 4 years. Failure by the commission to timely submit the report can allow council to compel a meeting of the commission to prepare and submit said report. Lastly, after the report is submitted, council must by ordinance either accept the commission's recommendations or any portion of them or reject them. If council rejects recommendations, the salaries in effect shall remain unchanged, and in no event may council adopt an ordinance establishing salaries higher than the recommendations of the commission. As of 1/1/2022, this is the current compensation levels of the elective offices. So the mayor is at $204,683. City council president is at $86,977. Council members are at $72,301. The city attorney is at $200,339, and the city auditor is at $200,339. The percentage increases that you see next to those show an increase on the initial year, which is 2022 for these. This is the first year of this salary for these officials. I want to note that the current compensation is not the work of this current commission, but was set by the 2018 Citizens Commission on Elected Officials Compensation. That commission set the salaries for years 2022 through 2025. And that increase that you see is a one-time increase in the first year provided by that commission. So this is a brief timeline of the commission's work. The commission was seated on January 10th, 2022. The commission has met every other week beginning January 19th. All of these meetings, which can be found on the City of Columbus YouTube page. The commission will make recommendations and then submit those recommendations to council via the city clerk. It's important to note that this commission is setting the salaries for years 2026 through 2029. Council will vote on the recommendations and choose to accept them or any portion of them. This is a list of the cities that were surveyed by this commission. So we have Austin, Texas, Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, Cincinnati, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Denver and Denver County, Colorado, Detroit, Michigan, El Paso, Texas, Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida, Kansas City, Missouri, Lexington, Kentucky, Memphis, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Nashville, Davidson County, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, San Antonio, Texas, and St. Louis, Missouri. And now I will pass it over to my colleague, Greg Beaverson, to begin his portion.
Thank you, Naya. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, members of the public, some of this information is will be slightly repetitive from what Naya just went over. There are some important points to make here with this particular slide that you see. These are the current salaries as she discussed. This is was set by the 2018 commission. It's important to remember that these were percentage increases only for 2022. There was no COLA, no cost of living adjustment applied as recommended by the 2018 commission. This slide shows the salary schedule for years following the current year, again set by the 2018 commission. And the reason that it is written in such a way, the plus COLA, plus the cost of living adjustment, the reason for that is because we do not know that number going forward. So that is calculated, pardon me, that is calculated based on October's data in the previous year. So that information cannot be obtained until November of the previous year. So what will take place this year, for example, is the 2023 COLA adjustment for each elected official will be calculated in November and announced to the elected officials in December, and then will be applied on January 1st of 2023, and that will continue through in the same fashion through 2025.
So Greg, we don't know the future COLAs, and we didn't apply the COLA to salaries for elected officials for this year. But do you know what the COLA would have been for this year?
Yes, I do. I do know what that would have been. Going
I'm
by
sorry,
memory,
putting you on the spot.
that's
Excuse
okay.
me.
That's okay. Going by memory, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, it would have been 2.23%
Okay,
it's
yeah,
also-
that number sounds familiar.
Yes, and it's also, I found it here. It's also important to remember that the charter mandates that it's not just the previous year's CPI, it is the average increase in the Consumer Price Index during the preceding 4 years. So the calculation was for 2021 that the CPI was 4.54%. So when averaged in with the previous 3 years, 2018 through 2020, that came to 2.23%.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you're welcome. Okay. This is the actual, and I know it's a big slide with lots of little digits and words and numbers on it, but it's important to put this out there so it can be seen how we do the actual calculation. This is literally a copy and paste from an Excel spreadsheet. This has it was developed by Matt Erickson in City Council. It is verified, reviewed, and confirmed by the Department of Finance and Management every year. And I know it's very small, but you can see there on the right-hand side in the yellow, that is the calculation that we end up with for the year-over-year CPI as directed by the Commission, and City Council. On the next slide, pardon me. It is important also for me to mention that the portion of the CPI, there are several different CPIs, as Dr. Lafayette explained in his presentation. It's important to understand which CPI was being used for the 2018 through 2021 calculation. Bear with me if you would here. This I'm reading from ordinance number 3300-2018, which is the ordinance that established the recommendations of the 2018 Council Commission. I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. What I'd like to bring up is the 2015 ordinance. That's ordinance number 3185-2015. The annual cost of living adjustments herein shall be calculated by the Department of Human Resources by determining the geometric average increase in the U.S. Department of Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI-U Midwest size Class A, all items for the 4-year period ending the month prior to the year in which the cost of living increase will be realized. Such COLA shall be added to the base salary as adjusted annually. That was from the 2015 Commission.
And that's the same manner in which Bill Lafayette recommended to us earlier?
It is the same manner in which it was recommended in 2015. And that's why I'm bringing this up. This was something that we discovered. There's a difference. It's a slight one, but there is a difference. For the 2018 Commission, there's a change. What it says is the annual COLA referenced, see section 1, herein shall be calculated by the Department of Human Resources by determining the geometric average increase in the U.S. Department of Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics, CPI-U, all U.S. cities, size Class A, all items for the 4-year period ending the month prior. So the difference is that the 2015 Commission and the subsequent ordinance that was written references Midwest. 2018 references all U.S. cities. So I have not made that calculation as of yet because we're not at that point. That will happen in November of this year for 2023. But it was important to point that out, that the 2018 commission and what ended up making it into the ordinance for the 2018 commission was a difference between the CPIs that are used. I tried going back to the report and finding if that was specifically recommended by Dr. Lafayette, and I just haven't been able to locate it yet, if it was.
Do you know if that change in the index, how material was that in terms of pay?
I wish I had that information for you now, Commissioner. I don't believe it will end up being a significant difference. And maybe Deputy Auditor Wilds can speak more to that, but I don't believe that there will be much of a difference at all between Midwest and all U.S. cities. But
Could
it's
you-
quite possible.
Could you please figure that out? Of
course.
And when we have our meeting next week, let us know. Thank you.
Of course. And just to let you know, I would have let the commission know that yesterday, but it was just discovered between yesterday and now. Let's see.
Good
so the COLA
catch.
calculation, yeah,
That's a good catch.
thank you.
Only dealing with 10,000.
Right, exactly, exactly. Now, if you could go back one slide, if you wouldn't mind. And this, just for general knowledge, and my apologies for the way that the slide appears here. This was difficult to put an entire web page all on one slide. So what you see on the left is the top of the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. What you see on the right is the bottom of the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. That is the exact place where this data comes from. And then for the record, at the bottom of the COLA calculation slide, I believe it's the previous one, Nia. That one. And again, I know it's difficult to see, especially with the copies that you have here, but they're on the screen. The website was provided by Dr. Lafayette in his report, and that is the same website, obviously, that's been used since. And then I also, right under the website, that string of numbers is the actual formula.
Is the actual what?
The actual formula, the actual Excel, Microsoft Excel formula, the calculation that's used to produce this 4-year average number. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Greg, for your presentation. I did just want to also include that if you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding anything that was presented today by myself or Greg, please email the commission at eocc@columbus.gov. Again, that's eocc@columbus.gov. And I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Walters. To the commission, I say maybe we should figure out this COLA and specify one, so there's not movement from cycle to cycle to some different COLA. Unless Mr. Lafayette, he seems to be our expert, would recommend otherwise. But do you recall early at his presentation to us, he used the Midwest one, didn't he? I seem to recall that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I thought so, Mr. Chairman. And I'm not exactly sure what happened in the 2018 commission, but that is what actually appears in the ordinance. So going forward, beginning for 2023, we'll be required to use that because that's what was passed by council.
What, in this cycle we're currently in?
That's correct,
Yeah,
from
right.
23 through 20, or excuse me, from 22 through 25.
Yeah. Staff has provided us with a summary bullet point of things that we've discussed in the course of the last 2 months. I'll just run through those. A discussion of the whole issue of part-time versus full-time, particularly amongst council members. the ethics conflicts that may exist on occasion, wondering if the public is receiving adequate representation. Better compensation would eliminate the need for outside employment. And then the whole question of, is that really in our purview? I think we concluded that it wasn't. But we had a robust conversation about that. The mayor is the only elected official that is prohibited by the charter from holding other employment. And as a practical matter, the city attorney and the city auditor don't hold other employment. But for a little teaching at the John Glenn School and refereeing some basketball, I understand. So it's I don't believe it's any point of significant conflict at all. The auditor, the mayor versus city manager conversation, does our mayor have more responsibilities than comparative to a city manager? And thus a salary compensation should be made against a city manager. I think we had a pretty lengthy conversation about that as well. And at our last meeting, I think we began to focus on looking at comparable compensation for mayors in cities with mayor-council forms of government. And there's a list of nearly a dozen, I think. I'd also like to point out that one of the cities we tried, that Mr. Beaverson tried to get information from, was Indianapolis, but we weren't able to come up with that. The auditor in
as much
Columbus
as we
has
could
more
get,
duties
Mr.
as a CFO than a traditional auditor. Columbus continued growth as a city and the responsibilities that it places on council members. We had a presentation by the council chief of staff telling us about the movement soon to be from 7 council members elected at large to 9 council members elected at large, but having to run from a specific district. Did I say that right, Ms. Walters? Okay.
That's correct.
There's been a discussion about whether there should be more separation between the mayor's pay and that of the city attorney and city auditor. Should we use the COLA as set by the average of the previous 4 years of the CPI, or a set percentage for the COLA, like it's 2% every year, as long as it doesn't exceed the requirement in the charter? It was important for us to get comparable information from Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. And we were able to do that from Cleveland and Cincinnati, but not from Indianapolis. There was a discussion of whether the requirement to be licensed should be considered in setting pay. Inflation and the pandemic, and how this is a much different time for setting pay than any other previous commissions have had to wrestle with. And the last commission made an effort to catch the salaries up of council that are similarly situated in cities, but also didn't want to seem like they were making too large of an increase. So the question that remains there is, I think, city council members need more of an increase, like was done in the recommendations 4 years ago. Those are all of my comments. Members of the commission, do you have comments?
I figured it out.
Keisha,
I
please.
just wanted to add that we also talked about council expanding from 7 to 9 members and then 6 additional staff, and there could be reverberation in other departments or divisions that support their work. So that's something else that we discussed and took into consideration when Matt Erickson presented. And we also heard from Auditor Kilgore about We don't yet know about the city's revenue, tax revenue with folks working from home and things of that nature, and how that could impact the city's budget as well going forward.
Yes, Commissioner
Durant's here?
Jenkins addressed,
Well, did she?
yes, I just
Okay.
wanted to amplify that we were not the prior commissions were not working with thinking of a 9-member council, and that since we are talking about pay in 2025, you know, there probably is a band of consideration of how we maintain the purchasing power of the salary set from 25 to 30? Would that be the way would that be the band of years we're just
26 to 29 is for this commission. The last commission's recommendations were are in effect currently through 2025. So you guys did briefly talk about in the last commission the 9-member council, because the 9-member council will start in 2024 with the municipal election being in 2023 for that 2024 council with 9 people.
So the first council of 9 will be under the existing pay scale.
That is correct.
And then after their first year in office, it'll be adjusted based upon decisions being made by this commission.
First 2 years, so it'll be a year 2024, the entire year of 2024, and the entire 2025.
Okay. So I guess the point to be made here, we're really kind of projected out to 2030.
The last full year will be 2029. So then the
Okay.
commission in 26 will be their first year will be 2030.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, in case anyone's watching that hasn't been able to watch all of the meetings, as I lose my name tag, the part-time versus full-time, the majority of that conversation centered around city council members, and is this question even in our purview? The commission decided that it was not in our purview, because in order to change that, you would need to either codify it or put it somewhere that this commission doesn't have power to put information or a statement that the salaries are part-time or full-time. However, we do have power to write reasoning for our recommendation and what that salary would be, and if our reasoning is that we expect this to be fair for part-time or full-time, or we are unsure, or whatever we're going to put in that report. But I just wanted to clarify that is this question even in our purview? Comment that the chair made was really focused on city council, and specifically our inability as this commission to change city code in a way that would mandate whether or not council members would be full or part-time.
Thank you, yeah. Are there other comments from commissioners? Other
just-
staff?
Just piggybacking on what Commissioner Ingalls said, we did talk about, though, that we elect our, particularly our council members, and that we want their brain to be engaged. And so that was another reason why, although we don't have the purview to determine whether it's a full-time job such that they would be precluded from having outside employment, we do think that they should be paid at an amount that would allow them to be full-time, because our city is growing and the complexity is growing as well.
And then I would just add to that, my issue with respect to this, whether part-time or full-time, are the ethical implications of voting on a budget and having an employer who is funded by the city. It doesn't stop with the agency in which the individual is employed. It expands once we talk about this question when we're voting a budget. Zero sum. What goes out to one agency is not going to, it takes from another kind of situation. So I see it in the context of ethics. It's difficult to address, I think, under normal circumstances. But, given the fact that our salaries now are they meeting the expectations of the public and the performance of the council member? Is really, I mean, that's my circular issue, to pick up the comments around the table.
I think it's a challenge that we've all expressed, is it's hard to set a salary for someone you don't understand fully what time requirement is being required of them and what they have to give up in order to take the position. And that's what makes the council position so difficult to set salary for.
Are we able to just recommend that that is an issue worthy of a thorough study?
I think we could do that in our recommendations, sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any objection to that, Ms. Walters?
I don't have any objection to you recommending that. I don't know that there is anything action that can be done by the recommendation of that should be studied, but it can be duly noted at least that that was the feeling of the
Well,
commission.
let me add independent, an independent study,
Yeah.
as opposed to just, from a validity standpoint, it will impact whatever the report is, and whether or not that report is adopted even. The sitting members of council will be, are kind of, could be biased by the results one way or another. If it's an outside study, just bringing information more than anything else to help guide future commissions in setting salaries or measuring the adequacy of compensation to the particular office involved.
I think that part of the reason that we do the comps with the comparator cities is to kind of like create that roundabout of what is, I don't want to say adequate, but what is a thoughtful salary considering similar situated cities that have similar populations or similar trajectory and sort of growth, sense of growth. I think that's kind of like the idea, but your recommendation is duly noted, and I will share that information, that was something that this commission would have liked to see going forward for further commissions for their benefit.
It was raised in the prior commission. That's what, it's a subject that's going to be raised again, I think, in the future. So some resolution, some attempt at resolving that issue, I think, is favorable for the future.
Any other comments? Yes, Robert?
We are monitoring both the YouTube page and the Facebook page to see if there's any questions. And as of this moment, there are no questions on the YouTube page. But on the Facebook page, there were a handful of folks commenting. It looks like most of them are comments. There's only one question that I can see, and it asks to please explain the raise. And my recollection is that question popped on here at the time that Naya was talking about the pay starting at the beginning of this year, the one-time increase that was done by the previous commission. So I just wanted to let you know that there was a question. Please explain the raise.
I think you have.
No.
Thank you.
That's not from, obviously, you're right.
I'm happy to do a brief on that if you want me to discuss
Well, sure,
that.
if you want to go into more detail.
Yeah, I think a little more detail would be probably helpful. So the raise, at least for council, was done when we looked at comparator cities, we looked at what the cost was that other council members and other councils were receiving, and so knowing that Clemson is growing, knowing that it is kind of advancing further, that commission wanted to make sure that council members were being adequately compensated with that in mind, and so when they viewed those comparator cities, they noticed that Columbus was kind of lagging behind in terms of compensation. And so that was an attempt to kind of catch Columbus council members up to other similar situated councils across the country. For the other two, those were kind of the more incremental increases. I think those were just kind of increases based on duty and position.
Okay. No insight into the difference in the percentage increases for the mayor versus city attorney and city auditor?
No, I didn't see any real discussion there because their increases were, I don't want to say they were small increases, but they were like 2% and 4%, 2% for the mayor, 4% respectively for the city attorney and the city auditor. But when council president and council members receiving 20%, that one was a little bit more substantive. And so there was a little bit more discussion around that piece because of the substantiveness of the increase.
Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Yes,
Chair.
sir.
Chair Castler, I just wanted to comment and, clarify, maybe amplify the issue we discussed regarding the mayor being the only elected official that is prohibited from holding an outside employment. And correct me if I'm wrong, Naya, that is a true fact. And it's my understanding that of all of the electeds that are being considered by the commissioners, only the mayor and the council president, from my understanding, are the only two that do not hold outside employment. And that is by choice by the council president, and by, the mayor is prohibited from doing so. It was mentioned of two employments by the city attorney and the city auditor. Those are paid employment jobs outside that they're allowed to earn extra income outside of their duties and responsibilities with the city of Columbus. The mayor has no other option to do that. So, the topic of the discussion when it came up was not to say that they should not be allowed to do that, by all means. It was just to point out that there is no other option for additional income for the mayor, and given his duties and responsibilities for the city of Columbus, I think that should be considered when discussing the salary.
I tend not to disagree with that. I think of federal judges, or they have all kinds of ethical restrictions on stock ownership and a lot of things, but one thing that they are able to earn income teaching. And the belief there is that it's similar to what our auditor's doing now, but the expertise that they're bringing from their seat as a sitting judge with active matters and cases is informative to students in educating students. So I believe if you go over to the federal building over here and go around the judicial chambers, they all have adjunct, and I'm sure that's what the position held by our auditors, an adjunct teaching position, mostly in the law school, but also the Glenn School. So it wasn't even restricted to just law teaching. And that makes sense to me. Their offices put them in a different perspective, in the active governance of community. But that would be charter. That I don't know that there's much for this commission. That's something, the charter has, the citizens have to wrestle with.
And it could be an appropriate topic for the Charter Review Committee,
Yes,
which is
Yes.
impaneled now.
yes.
Are there other comments?
Yeah, I did want to add that we, as a commission, have had conversations about city employees and what city employees in the bargaining units have received as far as what the city has bargained with them. They do not receive COLA per se, but they do get annual increases, and the average is roughly around 2.5-ish%, so 3%. So we have had discussions about that as a commission and how that might relate or might not relate into our decision on what percentage of increase, if any, our electeds would receive. And generally, the sentiment that the citizens of Columbus, many of whom look at these salaries and think, wow, that's a really, really big number, working day to day may have certain feelings. And we talked about the nature of the positions themselves, the level of work, the amount of management that it goes into, and the skill sets that are required to handle the large budget managing and the large, 9,000 employees in the city of Columbus, that kind of stuff. So we have had full discussions throughout our commission meetings about all of those issues as well.
And the last thing that I wanted to add for the viewing audience, if they're not aware, again, even though it's not codified anywhere, whether council members in particular are full or part-time, we do know that they receive benefits. So we wanted to share that as well.
And I know, is there something in the charter that sets the salary of the president of city council? I mean, the differential, is there something in charter that makes that happen, or is that something that was a tradition that the commissions, the preceding commissions picked up on and kind of tried to maintain? Do we know that?
Commissioner, there's nothing in the charter that I'm aware of that sets some kind of a differential between council members and council president or any of the elected officials, again, that I'm aware of.
And in modern times, it seems like the president's city council, if the mayor's there, the president's there. I mean, it's just kind of seems like that's the order of things, more so than all council members. That's observation. That's not, there's nothing I can point to, but, he chooses not to, he in this case chooses not to work. It's not that he isn't prohibited from doing so.
Right.
And, but his role has expanded, I think, from the time when we were all thought of it, when all council was thought of as maybe just part-time and everybody had work. And that's all been in my lifetime, where corporations were employing council members, to keep their income at a certain level, and then through ethical considerations that has now diminished the opportunities of these council members. So anyway, whether that comes as a recommendation, a footnote, or however, it certainly, again, is an issue I think will be revisited in future, will have to be revisited in future commissions, regardless of what decisions are made by this one. In fact, that maybe the job becomes even bigger with 9 council members as opposed to the 7.
You could certainly make a case for that, yes. Are there any other comments to come before this commission and this public hearing? Our next commission meeting is this coming Wednesday at 10 a.m. here at City Hall. The commission expects to make a report to City Council here in the coming month. And if there's nothing else to come before us, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.